Good evening, everyone. Hello, Force of Will community. My name is Ryan Lilly, aka Pearlshine, and I am back today with another deck list video, as promised, 2 in 1 week because I was late last week. Before we get into the profile, I do want to say the end of next week, November 5th and 6th, is the Ruler's School Force of Will Festival in Kalamazoo, Michigan. It is $45, I believe, for the lowest level of entry registration. I will have a link to that down in the description for you to click, and hopefully I'll see you there. Maybe you'll play the deck I played it, or I'm looking at today. Maybe not. Who knows? All I'm saying is show up. Show up, have a good time, meet some people. Okay? Um, as well as I will have a link to the deck profile that we're looking at as well down in the description. With that being said, thank you for tuning in to watch me ramble about yet another pile. I will say, before we get started, that this one in particular might be the most functional pile we've done so far. So get ready. Here we go. Today we are looking at Arla, but new. Okay, so of course Arla is one of the stranger rulers from Alice Origins cluster. This one came out in AO3. It is a green-white ruler. It's a human. It has Stranger 10, so you can have a Stranger deck with up to 10 Stranger cards in them. Or, I'm sorry, exactly 10 Stranger cards. And you can't have more than 2 of any particular one. In this case, we're playing 10 different ones, but we'll get to that later. Judgment for white and 2 green. Energize for white or green. And then it does a bunch of things, okay? And only some of these are relevant. Well, they're all relevant, but in their own way. But there's only one we care about, supremely above all the rest. So let's go. Whenever a light regalia enters the field under your control, choose one. If the regalia was Wings of the Archangel, you get to choose two. So you can either choose 2 cards from your stranger deck at random and remove them from the game, or give 2 target resonators you control, or actually just 2 target resonators flying and +200/+200 until the end of the turn, or draw a card for each resonator with flying you control, or you can pay 0 to do Judgment until the end of the turn. The giving things flying is not always relevant, especially in this deck, because most of what you're going to be playing already has flying. The drawing is okay, that's also sometimes helpful. Doing Judgment is about as important as the draw, maybe a little less. The one we care about the most, though, is removing 2 strangers in your stranger deck from the game. And that is because that both fuels the deck, which we'll get into, as well as Arla's God's Art. On the backside, he is a 1007 King's J ruler, shockingly without flying, unless you happen to have his regalia, which, again, we will get to that. When he enters the field, you can put the top card of your Magic Stone deck into the field, and then you get to choose a Stranger card from your Stranger deck at random and remove it from the game. He does have a God's Art. The Rise of Armala, it costs white, white, green, green. You can put any number of light or wind stranger resonators with different names from your removed area into the field. And then the big caveat, when you don't control the stranger resonator, you lose the game. So, this is a last ditch. I need to do this to win right now. And that's probably the best method to use it, because if you're doing it just to do it, it could be a little fragile. You might end up losing unexpectedly. But it does say different names, light and wind, so we are playing 10 different light and wind resonators in our stranger deck, which we will get into now. We're first starting off with a Riche, the swordsman. That's a stranger. It's a 7/1100 for white and 1. I'm not even actually going to read the casting cost of these cards. You can see them here printed on the screen. You're never going to have them in your hand, except in very niche situations if you happen to use your God's Art. And you can figure that out on your own. If you have a way to get them to your hand, fine. But if you don't, you're playing the deck as I intended it when I built it. We are playing 1 copy of this guy. When he does have quick cast, again irrelevant. When he enters the field, rest target resonator. It doesn't recover during the recovery phase as long as he is in the field. We're playing one copy of Siegfried the Dragon Knight. It's a 7/1000 paladin. It has flying and barrier from red and black, and when it enters the field, it destroys target rested resonator. Michael, the Archangel, is a 1000/1000 angel. It has flying, and you can pay 1 to prevent all damage that would be dealt to angel resonators you control until the end of the turn. There are several. You're playing one copy of Valkyrie, the Weaver of Destiny. Valkyrie is a 1400 Valkyrie. Shocker. She has flying, and when she enters the field, you remove 2 target non-J-Ruler, non-Magic Stone entities your opponent controls from the game, and when she leaves the field, they get them back. You are playing one copy of Apollon, the God of Light. He is a 14/17 Ranger. He's a deity, and has Pierce, which is pretty nice. If damage would be dealt to you, it's dealt to him instead. So he is kind of like the wall that everybody's playing now, but he doesn't prevent the damage that he takes, or necessarily prevent the damage to you. It's a replacement. It goes to him instead, and he dies after he takes 1700 or more damage. When this card is put into a graveyard from the field, you remove it from the game, and if you do, your life becomes 4000. So he does have the potential to reset your life total. But again, if he's on the board, that means you've used your God's Art, and if he is in the graveyard, there's a serious chance that your board has been wiped, and you're probably going to lose. But there are ways to get him into the graveyard otherwise. Moving on, we're playing one copy of the Sprout of Treasure Tree. Again, we are just playing this because it's incidental mana ramp whenever it's already in the field. It doesn't do a whole lot by itself. The Deep Green Magician Liz. If you happen to God's Art in response to a chant that your opponent has played, when she enters the field, you can cancel that chant. Otherwise, she will just do nothing. Playing one copy of Ignisve, the Guardian of the Green Branch. She's a 700/800. When she enters the field, you recover target J/Resonator. So you can attack with something, God's Art, bring her out along with all your other strangers, and then recover one of them. Will o' the Wisp. This is probably one of the better strangers in the deck if you are playing it by conventional means. 0/1000 with quick cast and barrier. Enter, draw a card, 0, return this card to its owner's hand, and that is not once per turn. So they are quite literally never going to kill this. And then we are going to look at Artemis, Goddess of the Hunt. We have one copy of her as well. She's a 1000/1000 goddess with swiftness and first strike, and she does a bunch of things. You can pay a white to give an entity you control barrier until end of turn. You can pay green and white to give all resonators you control +2/+, +200/+200 until the end of the turn. Or you can pay white, white, green to remove target resonator from the game. So those are your strangers. They are sort of a mixed bag, but they all have some sort of purpose, whether it be to deter the opponent or to provide yourself some sort of recovery or extra offense. So now we'll move into the main. Again, keep in mind, throughout this, the goal is to remove these strangers in your stranger deck from the game so that your main deck cards can benefit from it. So start off, we are playing 4 copies of Axel, the White Gale Eagle. He is a 100/100 beast for a single white mana with flying. Each turn, you can play your first Axel's Reconnaissance without paying its cost. I have taken the road less traveled here. I am not playing Reconnaissance, mainly because I would rather do other things with my deck space. When he enters the field, you can choose a card from your stranger deck at random and remove it from the game, and then he gets 3 100/100 counters for each card for each stranger resonator in your removed area. So potentially, just technically speaking, if you have 9 stranger resonators already in your removed area and you play him, he removes the 10th one. You gain, or he's essentially a 3100 that you just paid 1 mana for. Now I will point this out. It is I now you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, and I'll be happy to eat crow and say that I'm wrong in the comments. It is a then, so choose a card, remove it, then do this. I'm not certain if that is part of the requirement. You may have to actually do the removing in order to get the counters. More often than not, it's not going to matter. But in the niche event that it does, you may want to ask somebody because I'm not certain. the rulings on these cards can be a little wonky sometimes. Moving on, we're playing 4 copies of the Regalia Beast. This is the card that made me want to build this. For a singular white mana, it's a Regalia Resonator. It's also a beast. As this card enters the field, choose an attribute. This card becomes the chosen attribute. So if you choose, and I want to point out, it becomes the chosen attribute. So in Force of Will, when something becomes something, it straight up stops being whatever it is to start with. Okay, so it's currently a light resonator. When you choose an attribute as it enters the field, it will be whatever you chose rather than a light resonator. So if it's light and you choose light, it'll come in as a light. If it's light and you choose darkness, it'll come in as a darkness and it will not be light in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so that is relevant. It is no longer going to be the other color. It is only going to be whatever color you name. And it becomes the chosen attribute. More often than not, in this deck, we're just going to call light because that's the color we want it to be because that is the color that triggers Arla. So he also says, rest, produce 1 will of any attribute shared with this card. So it is just coincidentally some mana ramp on later turns. And whenever a non-resonator Regalia is put into the field under your control, you can put him from your graveyard into your hand. So if he dies, or you put him there by ulterior means, I will point that out later, you can use another card that we are playing, or actually a couple cards that we're playing, to just put him back into your hand and play him again. The goal is trigger Arla as many times as possible, get 10 strangers in the removed area, and big numbers. So here we go. Playing 4 copies of this guy. Moving on, we got 4 copies of Lorite. This is self-explanatory. I'm not even going to explain it. He's a good card. Necessary Evil. We're playing 3 copies of Dark Alice, Rabbit Princess. This is how you get the Regalia Beast in the graveyard. This is one of the ways I mentioned you could get Apollon in the graveyard to reset your life total to 4,000. This is also how you'll reuse another card in the deck because another card in the deck is very dependent upon you not having a particular thing. So you can use Dark Alice to get rid of that thing if you already have it so that you can use this other card again. When she enters the field, you do one thing, but you do it twice. You draw a card, and then you either discard a card or banish a non-J ruler entity. And then you repeat that process once. So you're going to draw and discard or banish a non-J ruler entity, and then you'll draw and discard or banish a non-J ruler entity. It's very good. It's essentially 1 mana, draw 2. You're not really losing anything. Cards in your graveyard cannot be the target of chance spells and abilities your opponent controls or be removed from the game. Probably not relevant, but it could be. And then the last part is not even possible in this deck because we are not playing any additions. So we are going to ignore that. We are playing 3 copies of her, though. Now we are looking at another card that just is accidentally good in the current meta. Peer the Godspeed Archer. We're playing 3 copies of this guy. He's a 400/400 with flying and swiftness for a single white will. When this card enters the field, sorry, this is not an enter trigger. This just happens. He enters the field with 2 divine bow counters. You can remove a divine bow counter from him to deal 400 damage to target attacking or blocking J/S Resonator. You can remove 2 divine bow counters from him to destroy target addition, the Great Wall. Or you can remove 4 divine bow counters from him to destroy target J/S Resonator with flying. Well, wait, remove 4. He only comes in with 2. Well, how about the last line of text? Rest him. Put X divine bow counters on this card, where X is the number of stranger resonators in your removed area. So you could potentially play him. He comes in with 2. Rest him. He goes up to 12. Are you going to ever really need or be able to amass that many counters? No, probably not, but it's a thing that he can do, and sometimes it matters. Blowing up a thing with flying might be the thing that saves you from losing the game. Who knows? So we are playing 3 copies of him because the additions are very popular now, and I don't like my opponent to be able to prevent themselves from taking damage. No hiding behind your walls. Looking at you, contract rulers. Moving on. We got 4 copies of Win Condition. Magnus Angel. This card is a 100/100 for a green and a white, and it happens to be an angel. Incidental synergy between this card and some of the cards in your Stranger deck. It has flying, and when it enters the field, you choose a card from your stranger deck at random and remove it from the game. So cool, more acceleration. This card gains plus 400 for each different name among stranger resonators in your removed area. Meaning if you have 10, this card is plus 4,000 just for existing. So it is a 4,100 flyer. Big number. Big number. It's very, very easy to get rid of many strangers from your stranger deck very, very quickly in this deck. And this card is your win condition because it benefits the most from it. While Axel is good, Axel pales in comparison to the sheer big number that this card is going to produce. You are playing 4 of it. Next, we're moving on to 4 copies of Ferris Spell. Cancel target spell with Quick Cast, including other copies of Ferris Spell. A lot of quick cast stuff in this game, aka Lorite, or in my mind, the essence of Athena's power, could really screw over your game plan. So you do not, or Gradius, I learned that the hard way the other night. You want to be able to counter some quick cast stuff that may cause you to not be able to maintain a board presence or create a board presence. So we have 4 copies of this. Next, we have 3 copies of Alice Enters the Game of Gods. This is a new card that I decided to add. It's a white for a chant. It's got quick cast, 1 mana. You choose one. Target Jace Resonator loses all abilities until end of turn, or the ability I actually care about. Not that the other one's not useful, but choose an attribute. If you don't control a Regalia token with the chosen attribute, put a Regalia token with the chosen attribute into the field and then draw a card. So you're going to play this. See, in my mind, you can go turn 1, call a stone, Regalia Beast. Call light, remove 2 strangers in your deck from the game. On your opponent's turn, rest your Regalia Beast. No, that doesn't work. If he lives, you can use your Regalia Beast to, Regalia Beast doesn't have swiftness. My bad. You can use your Regalia Beast to cast this, and you can choose a light Regalia, and it specifies token. So you choose a light Regalia token, it comes into the field, you remove 2 more. That's 4 strangers removed off of 2 mana, and you haven't even had a chance to call a second stone yet. Now the other ability, target Jace Resonator loses all abilities until end of turn, is pretty good as well. So let's say your opponent pays the mastery cost of Justice Punch. You can just go respond, Alice Enters the Game of Gods. They got to find a way to untap him immediately so that he becomes an illegal target, or he's losing all of his abilities for the rest of the turn. It's going to shut down their big power push. The last part is Force Resonance Genesis. We don't get that, so we don't care about it. But I mentioned earlier that if you, we were talking about Dark Alice, getting rid of a card that you have already played so that you can use it again. If you don't control a Regalia token with the chosen attribute, put a Regalia token. Well, after you play it once, you're already going to have it. So you can use Dark Alice to banish your Regalia token that you've already created so that you are able to play this card again. Next, we are playing 3 copies of the Win More card, the Win Moriest card, probably in the current format, Sprinting Steward. You see this red mana, it's a chant. As an additional cost to play this card, pay any amount of life. J Resonators control gain plus 600, and swiftness until end of turn, where X is the amount of life you paid as an additional cost divided by 400 rounded down. So if you pay 2,000 life, all of your Resonators get plus 500, and swiftness. Just to put this in perspective, let's say turn. You're going to be able to kill your opponent very, very quickly. Probably turn 2 or 3 at the latest. Turn 3 at the latest. Turn 2 at the earliest. If you have this card and everything goes your way. But you are playing 3 copies of that because we want to see it if necessary, but we don't want to see more than 1 copy of it. Next, we are playing 2 copies of the Essence of Athena's Power. This is in here strictly to counter various graveyard-centric strategies, as well as to undo other people having played Essence of Athena's power against us. So you gotta realize a lot of the stuff in this deck benefits from having strangers in your removed area. If the opponent plays this and all your strangers go to your graveyard, your stuff's gonna be real tiny. So you're playing 2 copies of this just as a buffer so that if that happens, you can put all your grave back into your removed area and your stuff's gonna be big again. It also, like I said, does disrupt graveyard-centric strategies by just, hey, like, oh, all that's in the removed area now. So we are playing 2 copies of this just in case. We're playing 4 copies of Awakening of the Winged Lord. This card can get pretty much any card in the deck that is not exactly a chant. So cost white, green. It is a sword art, and it has quick cast. You choose one. You either untap or recover 2 J/Resonators with flying, or look at the top 4 cards of your deck and put a non-chant with total cost 2 or less from among them into the field. The rest go on the bottom in a random order. Or you can choose a card from your stranger deck at random and remove it from the game, and you gain life equal to its attack. So it could be life gain, incidental, if necessary, like last-ditch effort necessary. The mode that I prefer, which is look at the top 4, get something for free. That's pretty good. And it's any non-chant card, and I think we're only playing like 12 chants on top of this card, so maybe 16 total, meaning there are 24 targets minimum for this card in the deck to just get something out of the deck for free, accelerate your game plan a little faster. Or you can recover 2 J/Resonators with flying, which may just translate to win the game depending on how big that the things you recover are. If you recover, a combination of Axel and Magnus Angel, and they just happen to be cumulatively bigger than 2,000 damage, you could just win the game in one turn. Swing, play this, untap them, swing again. So we're playing 4 copies of that. We're also playing 2 copies of Wings of the Archangel. Now, before you come at me about why I'm not playing more than 2 copies of this, number 1, it costs 2 mana, it is sorcery speed, and I can only control one of them. I'm sorry, I said sorcery speed. It's chant speed. You can only play it on your turn when you have priority and there are no cards in the chase. So the fact that I can only have one of it, it costs me 2 mana, and it only benefits exactly Arla for the God's Art or exactly Awakening of the Winged Lord. We do not need to play more than 2 because you can run this deck without this card. This card is just to bolster its already wonderful capabilities to be very aggressive. So we are playing 2 copies of that, and that's the main deck. Next, we do have our stones. We're playing 4 Ataractia's Memoria. This literally just says rest, produce, green or white. Playing 4 copies of the Magic Stone of Moonshade because we're not playing Sealed One-Eyed Dragon in this pile, although we could. However, I wouldn't want to sacrifice the color consistency. You can use this to make the red or the black that is necessary for Sprinting Steward or the Essence of Athena's power. It also coincidentally just happens to make white and green. So the only color that this stone can make that you don't need is blue. It does everything for the low cost of 200 life. And trust me, with as fast as this deck is going to go, you don't care about your life. The only life point that matters is the last one. It's a resource, use it. We're playing 1 more copy of Gusting Skies. I say 1 more because that's essentially what Ataractia's Memoria is. And then we're playing 1 copy of Light Moon Fragment. This is because I wanted that 1 extra red source just in the event that I have Sprinting Steward in my hand and I want to be able to play it. Also, let's be real. If we had a green-white version of this card, I would be playing 4 of them instead of the Ataractia's Memoria. All right, moving on. We're going to look at the last part of the deck, which is the side deck. We have 3 copies of Exorcist Mage at the Academy. There's a lot of things happening in the Wanderer meta right now where they're cheating stuff into play, like either not paying its cost, bringing it in from the grave, or even in our case, bringing it in from the removed area. If a Resonator would be put into the field without being played from the hand, remove it from the game instead. It never touches the board. It just goes straight to the removed area. This card gains Bearer as long as there is a 1/1 counter on it, which there will probably never be. You just care about the fact that it says, hey, pay for it, play it from your hand, or you can't have it. We're playing 3 copies of that. We're also playing 3 copies of Lumia, Princess of Rebirth. Part about this card that we care about is the fixing our life total. In the event that there is a deck that actually manages to do the thing that we're talking about and it becomes a problem, we want to be able to put our life total back to where we need it to be. So we are playing 2 copies of this, or 3 copies of this, I'm sorry. We're also, the bottom half of the card, you can pay a black to remove target resonator with total cost 2 or less from the game. And then if you awaken it for white, you can also just put the Lumia half of the card into the field. So it's pretty good. It's in here as a buffer, arguably a flex spot. This card, however, is not a flex spot because I am terrified of Garion in this list. The only card in the deck that we have like what, like 10 cards in the deck that are actually able to be played if someone puts Garion on the board. Garion says you can't play spells with total cost 2 or less, or 1 or less. That's literally 30 cards in the deck are 1 cost or less. So we're playing this guy because this guy is 4 cost, and he happens to say, enter, destroy target resonator your opponent controls, and you gain life equal to its defense. It's pretty good. Or if they happen to be so bold as to attack with their Garion instead of letting it gatekeep like they should, you can pay a white and discard this card to just destroy the attacking resonator. And this all gets around Garion's cost restrictions. So we're playing 3 copies of the Hunting Angel. There are a lot of God's Arts floating around right now, especially with the Moon Children, so I like to play things that say no to that. The 7th boon, Amadeus Holy Spear, it's got 2 modes. One of them is more relevant than the other. I'm not going to make you guess which one. I'm just going to tell you it's the God's Art. For a white will, at quick cast speed, cancel target God's Art. If you have something you're trying to stop your opponent from playing, like you cast a Ferris Spell in response, and they go, "Oh, ha ha ha! Red Moonchild can't cancel that." Amadeus Holy Spear, they are not able to use the Red Moonchild again. That God's Art is canceled. Their spell is canceled. They can't do anything about it. Or if you need to pop off and your opponent tries to go White Moonchild, you can go cancel target God's Art. This is just essentially one more set of 3 Lorites geared specifically at the Moon Children. And it is also arguably a flex spot. And we're also playing this card. This is called the Help Me, I Almost Lost the Game card. Light of Zeus for white and white at quick cast speed. Any number of target entities gain eternal until end of turn. So you can literally just go, hey, I played my God's Art this turn, and now I got a big board I got to protect. Your opponent goes, okay, kill it. You can just go, pay 2, Light of Zeus, target my whole board. You can't do anything about it. They all gain Eternal. And more often than not, Eternal is enough to keep your board from dying to a board wipe or various stat negs or removal. So we are playing 3 copies of this. But that brings us to a close on the this deck list today. We are looking at Arla, but new. And I wanted to come up with a more creative name for that, but that's honestly, it's just what this is. This is Arla as he was played 2 or 3 years ago, pre-pandemic Arla. He is just as threatening as he was back then, arguably more so because of all the new toys. So, yeah, with that being said, I'm going to have a link to this deck profile in the description down below. Also, once again, the Ruler School Force of Will Festival is next weekend, November 5th and 6th. I will have a link to the registration for that in the description as well. Please go check it out. I hope to see you there. And until next time, I've been Pearlshine, and peace out.